underwhelming. That's the word I'd use to describe how I felt about episode 1 of House of the Dragon. After 2 years of waiting for the season to finally premiere, it's quite disappointing that it ended up being so underwhelming. The reason for this is because the show changed so many things from the book that certain moments that should have been impactful didn't really hit home. A great example of this is Jace's time spent at Winterfell. In the book, Jacaerys spends a lot of time in Winterfell, trying to win the support of the North. In fact, he stays there for so long that he feasts with Lord Cregan, drinks with him, and they even spend time hunting together. These activities help Jacaerys during his time of grieving his brother, and Lord Stark becomes a huge comfort for him, especially since he himself can relate with losing a little brother. In Fire and Blood, it's said that Lord Cregan's little brother died when he was young. However, the show removes all of this, and Jace ends up spending maybe about 10 minutes at the wall, talking about honor and duty and the dangers that lurk beyond the wall. I've watched season 8 of Game of Thrones. The dangers that lurk beyond the wall are not that dangerous. It only takes an episode to deal with them, and not many people are in danger of them either. It's all underwhelming how all of this pans out in House of the Dragon. Also, in Fire and Blood, Jace is said to have had an affair with Cregan Stark's bastard sister, Sara Snow. It's said that in his grief, she also comforted him, but a lot differently than Lord Cregan did, bedding him rather than hunting and drinking with him. This would have been an interesting relationship to adapt because it introduces a layer of complexity to Jacaerys' character, and it's believable since he could relate with Sara Snow, who is a bastard like him. People know that Sara is a bastard girl, and she is acknowledged as such and accepted by her brother. Jace might have been fascinated by such a girl, and maybe gotten to know her, growing closer to her, and eventually falling in love with her. Since he doesn't really know Baela that well, it would have been believable for him to fall for a girl who is a bastard like him, especially since he spends so much time at Winterfell in the books. However, the show removes the storyline entirely, and we don't even get to see Sara Snow in the episode. I doubt that she'll be in the season at all, because the writers are intent on making Jacaerys likable and boring, instead of someone who is interesting and flawed. However, they do make Aegon a lot more interesting on the show, a surprising change from the book. Aegon is still a fool who makes bad decisions and who's clueless about warfare, but he is funny and more determined to become a good king on the show. In a way, it is actually in keeping with his character arc from Fire and Blood, because though he starts off not wanting to usurp his sister's throne, he does end up embracing his position and taking it more seriously with time. This is mostly because of Sir Criston Cole and the words that he uses to persuade Aegon to take the throne. He says, "Whilst any true-born Targaryen yet lives, no strong can ever hope to sit the Iron Throne. Therefore, Rhaenyra has no choice but to take your heads if she wishes her bastards to rule after her." In the book, it's clear that this is the statement that makes Aegon want to become a king, and that in time, he does embrace the role, leaning on the advice of his counselors. On the show, Aegon's motivations are removed entirely, but he still wants to be a good king, and he does lean on the advice of his counselors. In the episode, we see that he's being manipulated by Larys Strong, and that Larys might have ambitions to be the Hand of the King. This is another big change from the book though, because Larys never becomes Hand, nor does he try to undermine Otto Hightower, nor try to remove him as Hand of the King. In the book, the Green Counselors are all of one mind, striving towards one goal, and they even take a blood oath to ensure that they all work together to keep Aegon on the Iron Throne. However, again, this is something that the show has removed from the story in order to create tension and division within the Green faction. Many changes are made on the show in regards to many things, but the worst change is obviously the change that's made to Blood and Cheese at the end. In the book, Blood and Cheese is way worse than how it was depicted on the show. On the show, Blood and Cheese are sent to kill Aemond, not Helena's children, but when they enter into Aemond's chambers, they find that he is not there. So as they wander the castle trying to look for him, they stumble upon Helena instead, and they decide in that moment to kill one of her children. They tell Helena to choose which one they should kill, and Helena immediately points to her son, Jaehaerys. The two men believe her and begin to saw her son's head off, while she quietly grabs her daughter and runs out of the room to find Alicent having sex with Sir Criston Cole. It's a moment that's very disappointing and underwhelming if you've read the book and understand how much it's been changed. In Fire and Blood, Helena's children would always play with their grandfather, Viserys, before he died. But since the time of his passing, Alicent decides to take his place and let them visit her every night. In the book, Helena has 3 children, 2 boys, Jaehaerys and Maelor, and a girl, Jaehaerys' twin, Jaehaera. They visit Alicent every night at dusk, and the ratcatcher, Cheese, is aware of this. In Fire and Blood, what happens to Helena and her children is no accident. Daemon is in Harrenhal, but he sends a letter to Rhaenyra, telling her that Lucerys will be avenged. A son for a son, he says at the end. Blood and Cheese are hired to go to Alicent's room, and when they get there, they gag Alicent and wait till dusk for Helena to arrive with her children. When she does, Blood, a big and brutal man, kills Helena's guards while Cheese grabs Helena and her children. "Scream and you all die," Blood told her Grace. Queen Helena kept her calm, it is said. "Who are you?" she demanded of the two. "Debt collectors," said Cheese. "An eye for an eye, a son for a son." It's said that afterwards, Cheese made Helena choose which one of her sons she wanted dead. The older one, Jaehaerys, or the younger one, Maelor. And at first, Helena chose herself. "A wife's not a son," said Blood. "It has to be a boy." Cheese also threatens Helena at this moment and tells her that if she doesn't choose, then Blood will R-word her daughter and kill them all anyway. Therefore, Helena has no choice but to choose. Perhaps she believed that Maelor was too young to understand, but in the end, she chose him to die instead of Jaehaerys. "You hear that, little boy?" Cheese whispered to Maelor. "Your mama wants you dead." Then he gave Blood a grin, and the hulking swordsman slew Prince Jaehaerys, striking off the boy's head with a single blow. The queen began to scream. On the show, none of this happens. Every element of the story that makes the event particularly dark and horrifying is removed. Daemon doesn't send Blood and Cheese to kill Helena's kids. Instead, he sends them to kill Aemond. The killing of Helena's children is an accident because Blood and Cheese stumble upon her room. Maelor isn't even in the scene, so Helena cannot choose between 2 sons. Helena doesn't even really choose, she just gives up her son straight away, and she doesn't even try to offer her own life before she does it. Helena doesn't so much as scream as she hears Blood and Cheese kill her son. She barely even sheds a tear. So the event is completely changed, and it all ends up feeling underwhelming. In my opinion, this change was done for one reason and one reason only: to exempt the Black faction from any blame in killing Helena's children. I've said before that this show is extremely biased against the Green faction, and that the writers are totally in favor of the Black faction. This change is another example of why I say that this show is so biased, and it will continue to be biased because Rhaenyra and her faction are whitewashed on the show. but the writers clearly prefer her and the Black faction, so they can't make them look like the villains. That is why this episode is so underwhelming. That is why Blood and Cheese were ruined. But perhaps you disagree. What do you think about this episode? And how do you think that these changes were handled on the show? Let me know down below in the comments section. And if you like this video, click the thumbs up and subscribe for more content. Thank you for watching. Peace.